This is episode 9 of Bleach Revisited, in which we will be reading the 9th chapter of the Bleach manga. In my case, this will be an unscripted rereading of the chapter, as I have read the entire series, but that was back whenever it was being written weekly. So, it's been a long time for me. I'm interested to get back into these chapters and see a lot of things and make these connections, do a little bit of analysis, both being, a bit older than I was whenever I originally read it, as well as having, the entire manga to reflect on. But without further ado, let's get into the chapter. This is chapter 9, Monster vs. New Girl, Smackdown. Help him! Tell him if he goes to the other side, we can be with her again. He could be with her again. Don't let him be alone anymore. Ichigo. Shoot, I can't catch them. The stupid Gigai. It can't even fly. Gigai is a temporary body used by a weakened Soul Reaper. Rukia currently inhabits one. This Gigai is no stronger than the average scrawny schoolgirl. Just wait till I see those research and development freaks. They're all about legs and boobs when it's muscle I need. This is bad. Out of breath already. You smell good. You smell like lunch. Time to eat your soul. No, I was so intent on pursuit I forgot to wash my back. Monster vs. New Girl. Smackdown. Chapter 9 of Bleach. It's been years since I saw Karen cry. Before Mom died, Karen and Yuzu were regular crybabies. But then, Yuzu took over Mom's duties like she was a grown-up. Karen didn't have Yuzu's flair for homemaking, so she stepped aside and took care of herself. I never saw her cry again, till now. Not even whenever she got beat up by that 6th grader in 1st grade, or when she got chewed out for throwing a ball through the principal's window when she was 7, or whenever she broke her leg on that field trip in 3rd grade. She never cried once. Don't worry, Karen. It's okay. I'll get him back with his mom. You're still alive. You're tougher than you look. And you can see me. What are you, little girl? Ruler, the mask of blood and flesh, all things of the universe fly, that which names all. Truth and temperance, slight claw at the dream wall, which brooks no sin. Binding spell 33, Soka Sui, Pale Fire Crash. I did it. I've got my powers back. What? Oh, no. He's not hurt? I know that spell. It's a Soul Reaper spell, so that's what you are. But you're weak. It had no bite. I could do the spell, but it has no effect. A tender little Soul Reaper. Oh, you smell delicious. That brings back memories. You see, I have already eaten 2 Soul Reapers who tried to take the boy to Soul Society. Mighty good eating, too. The boy? You mean the soul in the parakeet? Yeah. Why do you pursue him so relentlessly? Why? Good question. Maybe I'll tell you, if you let me have a nibble. Scum! What's going on? He's attacking her? The lady who is chasing us. The monster's attacking her. He'll hurt her too. Stay here. What are you going to do? I'm going to help her. No, don't go. He'll get you. Wait. It's not me I'm worried about, it's you. Darn it! You can't even see him! Don't go! He'll kill you! Please don't go! Stop! What a sissy, and you call yourself a Soul Reaper. Why not ditch the meat suit and fight for real? Huh? Ah! Mmm! Ah! Yeah, got him, I think. What? He punched a hollow? Can he see it? No? Okay, come on. Doesn't look like it. Scared me for a second there, but it was just a lucky shot. He can't see squat. Ugh! Yeah, got him again. That's impossible. Normal humans can't touch hollows or soul reapers. They can't even see or hear them. He's attacking a deadly enemy he can't even perceive. Doesn't he have any fear? Ah, you're dead. Uh-oh. Now try to hit me. Well, tough guy. Now what? Don't just stand there. Run! He's taken to the air. Hey, new girl. You can see ghosts? There's no time to talk. We can't reach. Where is he? What? You said he's in the air. Which direction? What difference does it make? What can you... This. So many choices. I could swoop down like a hawk, or... What? What the... Well, which way? In front of you. Bring it straight down. Ah! Power outage. Todd Nation, the wash is dead too. Grandpa, the TV's out. I imagine it went the other way. Grandpa, the TV's out. Todd Nation, the wash is dead too. Anyway, that was chapter 9 of Bleach. Got to get a cool fight with this hollow Shrieker. The beginnings of seeing some more power from Chad. And a bit more from Rukia. So, pretty interesting chapter altogether, I think. But let's get right into the analysis in response to this chapter. As always, I'll be looking at the art as well as kind of what's going on narratively here. So, again, we start where we left off last time, where basically Rukia is chasing down Chad. There's a hollow that's stalking both of them, and Ichigo, meanwhile, has taken Karen off to the side because he wants to get her to safety. But she also is just telling him, like that she really wants to help. She wants Ichigo to help out this parakeet, this soul that is bound to it, and that if he moves on from the mortal realm, he won't have to be alone anymore. That he could be with his mom. So interesting kind of insight from Karen there, who has the sense that helping people move on maybe helps them be with their family that have passed on. So kind of interesting. I don't know, it's not that like she's aware of like Soul Society or anything like that. I think it's just that she has this kind of supernatural sense, and she literally works at a clinic, right? She sees people pass away all the time, and so feeling someone's pain like that, I think she's just kind of recognizing that this is a fellow kind of lonely soul around her age that's had a lot of the same loss that she has. Again, fantastic. I talk about this all the time, building anticipatory action and delivering it on the next page. So we have this like Ichigo, reacting, and obviously he's looking to Karen, like that, right? But that draws our eye to the quick movements, footstep, and then we get the payoff of that, which is Rukia chasing down Chad, to remind us, the kind of action that we were in before. Here we get a little bit more info on Gigai. That Gigai are just built to be pretty much like a human's body, and we get some other kind of information. So clearly, there's a research and development team over in Soul Society that develops these Gigai, but maybe they care more about it being a believable human body than being super jacked or capable of flying or like actually useful, which I think is fair. The idea is right is to convincingly fit into human society, to like be able to pass as a human. And we'll even see here until she's revealed things with Shrieker. Even Shrieker doesn't realize, the Hollow doesn't realize that she isn't human until she makes that pretty evident. So clearly the Gigai is masking her spiritual power, well, which is pretty limited, admittedly, since Ichigo is taking and borrowing most of it, right? But at the very least, you get the sense that yeah, she's just essentially operating as much as she can as a regular human here. That she's kind of bound to that. But yeah, Chad's back has bled through. See, getting too ahead of myself, trying to say that his back has been bled, and trying to confuse both those words. Chad's not black; he's just dark skinned. Um, he's of Mestizo or kind of Spanish and Asian heritage, if I remember correctly. Anyway, here we first get our first actual shot of the Hollow that's been chasing them, Shrieker, and Shrieker's kind of another instance of them showing us that Hollows are pretty differentiated. They have unique characteristics, abilities, and even personalities. As this one can fly, which I don't think any of the previous Hollows really had that capability. Also, different mask, very uniquely designed. I think they're interesting looking monsters, nevertheless. But again, talking about that turn paging action is that we get, that you smell good line coming from somebody that's clearly not Chad. So a third in this scene, this shocked expression from Rukia, and of course we turn the page to that splash. Again, I talked about this last chapter, but a lot of the times that Kubo wants to really draw your attention to like the characters in a moment are towards like a certain like powerful kind of exchange, or like just like singular driving character moment. A lot of the time the background will be completely blank, while instead we could just focus on the character drawings. So here that it is again, and I think it's effective. It really, really kind of dials you into just the detail that's there. But yeah, again, another action into it's chapter, So even there, we get a little bit of like, oh man, here's some tension. We don't know what's happening. Ruki is getting attacked, right? I believe that this is Karen. Though maybe it's Rukia actually. Never mind. I was like, wait a minute. No, that maybe is Ruki Ichigo Chad. I was like, could be Karen, but no. I like the linked up headphone jacked into like a couch. It's kind of cool. We get some I can't even read something in peace. Nice dog. Yeah, I love Chad always has these kind of really neat floral patterns, and that even extends here into the chapter art. But yeah. Let's go on to the next page. Like there's this whole like track listing kind of thing happening on Karen's bed covers, like her comforter or her blanket, something like that. But yeah, we've kind of got established here, Ichigo has dropped Karen off. Kind of interesting that we get like this kind of scratchier, I don't know how to kind of, it's less solid filled in. Maybe I don't think that's the scan being washed out. I think that's actually like literally meant to be an effect to show us that this happened. Kind of these two panels in the recent past. So it's another kind of new effect, maybe new attempt at show like using some sort of artistic, rendition to establish like, okay, these things have already just happened. Since that's not in sequence, right? We get Ichigo, he's running back now. He doesn't have her with him. This is kind of curious, but yeah. Launch back into talking about Misaki, their mother, dying, and how we've seen this. I mentioned before, we saw Yuzu twice already. Making breakfast, cooking, kind of fulfilling those household duties. And then we get Karen kind of being colder and being more like less the optimist, right? Maybe a little bit more pragmatic, but here we get that both of those things have grown out of the death of their mother. So, as always, Bleach is really concerned with the connection that people have to others, especially kind of how those people develop and grow around death. You know, obviously, it's series deals with the afterlife. Death is a pretty prominent role in all this, but especially how death affects people through the bonds that they have with others. Like, I think that's a really big thing. Huge theme throughout Bleach. So, yeah, I like that, Ichigo is like aware, like, yeah, I'll help him pass on and get back with his mom. He has a little bit more awareness or assurance. And here, I think we get a pretty cool. So typically, we use the end of a page or an anticipatory kind of action, like I said, to build us to a different scene on the next page, or to even kind of like fill us with tension. So earlier we got the Hollow attacking Rukia, and then we have the tension of that, but that doesn't immediately get released by us seeing what happens on the next page because it's the chapter cover, and then we get into this entire part with Ichigo. So that's been kind of in the back of her head, right? And so you'll see this often where whenever we're getting to a transition, instead of it being focused on an anticipatory action on a page turn to do the same sort of like building up tension and then swapping to a different scene, what we get instead is like a scenery shot, or something that isn't focused on the characters, just to kind of cleanse the palette of what we've been focusing on earlier. So here instead, the focus is more on these dialogue, and we're given a little bit of a space to not really be in scene with Ichigo here, so that we could go back to the Rukia scene, right? And I think that's, again, whenever we talk about pacing in manga, and in comics in general, and this kind of sequential art here, if that's even the right term, we get, there's the idea is that your mind's going to fill in blanks between panels, right? That in a way you are cooperatively writing the thing. You're engaged in this kind of creative cooperative fiction to a degree. And I mean, this is it with any sort of creative medium that leaves a little bit up to interpretation. It's why, for some games I prefer there not to be voice acting, because you can imagine what the voices sound like. Same thing with, like manga, right? Like, you're always kind of, there's a part of your imagination that will always fill in the gaps of things, unless you're I guess not capable of that, right? But I think most people, at the very least, to a degree, kind of have a bit of, I say, co-authorship, right? That like they engage in that. And part of what makes comics effective is that they provide us a sequence of images, but we still connect between those moments, right? So we're still trying to draw some sort of logical connection between just this image of Ichigo. We know he's running from the previous panel, and then we get these kind of like these lines, which we've come to understand as like speed lines or shorthand for some sort of action. We get the sky, and so we have this kind of telescoping effect of like, okay, what are we looking at right now? Where are we focusing? We have dialogue to kind of ground us, and then we get pulled into this other scene, which is again using the same sort of speed lines. So I think whenever I talk about pacing, I think a less effective manga wouldn't have this middle panel the way it is, right? It would still keep us in scene with Ichigo and then kind of jarringly cut to the other scene, which sure can be effective if done right, but more often than not, that sort of jump cutting without really using an effect like a worthwhile transition, like a page turn, or like a build of anticipatory action, like we see a lot in Bleach, are with like these kind of palette cleanser scenery shots. that sort of thing, not having that, like, can make it feel jarring, can make the pacing feel like, like it doesn't follow kind of a reason or a any sort of like meter that makes sense. So I appreciate that being there. I mean, it's a little thing, but it's so easy to be like, okay, well, I want to jump to these other characters, I'll just put them in the next panel, right? And so instead, the show's like a bit of restraint from that, as well as kind of real, I'm not saying mastery of form or anything. This is pretty straightforward, like comics or manga stuff, right? But at the very least, it shows like an understanding of like, okay, well, I want to make this transition from these two scenes. How am I going to do that in a way that reads rather than the just assuming like, yeah, they're gonna be able to make sense of it, right? And I think there's always one of the things that I've always appreciated about Bleach is that there's this real effort towards readability. I talked about that before with the earlier bit with Shrieker, right? Where we get here where the oftentimes Kubo will get rid of any background detail because he just wants to focus on these characters or the singular moment. And I think that's again done for readability, right? It's done so that your focus is drawn specifically to what he wants you to like pay attention to, because there literally is nothing else, right? So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's neat to also think about like how anime tries to adapt that too. Um, so you know, kind of neat stuff. Also, whenever it comes to pacing, the pacing of manga is just all we have is panels, right? With anime, you have to sit there second by second and watch it as it progresses. But with paneling in manga, the only sense of time, or I guess of narrative space, is through what we get in the panels and what we can kind of intuit between panels. So an effective manga will always do that sort of thing where it uses its panels to punctuate its time effectively and space effectively. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. Otherwise, we're just kind of jumping all over time and space, and it could be a bit of a disorienting mess. And I think that's what again differentiates good manga from bad manga and good comics from bad comics, is just that sense of understanding the form and how to use it. Anyway, here I love, so we get Rukia, she's getting thrown back, right? We have that action. But then we catch, her palm catches against the ground, she flips around, and then she's gonna come back. I love the skirt flare is fantastic to establish like this kind of momentum as she whips back around. And yeah, Shrieker is impressed with her, as maybe we should be as well. That she's kind of holding her own against this hollow that she didn't expect to attack her. And we get this the beginnings of some Rukia kicking ass, right? Or at least attempting to. She doesn't have her spiritual power, right? So she can go through the momentum of it. She can go through the actions, but she can't quite land that strong of a blow. It's like if you don't have the musculature or the mass and you're trying to punch somebody, which is exactly what she was, reflecting on earlier, is that she doesn't have these muscles or anything like that. So yeah, we get this chant. It's not. I don't think it's something that we've really seen earlier in any, especially in this long form. But this, the ruler, mask of blood and flesh, all things of the universe fly. That which names all truth and temperance, slight claw at the dream wall, which brooks no sin. Making sense of that, there's a few things that whenever I talk about the spoilers and connections to larger things in Bleach, I'm sure I'll have something to say about maybe some other speculation about things that could make sense. But as far as what we have so far in the manga, I think this is just meant to be, like kind of like a we're supposed to read this sort of like a chant or a prayer of sorts that is essentially used to do this magic. And magical chants or incantations are kind of, they're a thing. If you've read any amount of fiction, you're probably familiar, right? So that's kind of what's happening here. that she's saying this entire chant so that she can use this binding spell 33. So at the very least, earlier on we got Way of Bonding number 1, I believe. The keto that was holding Ichigo in the first chapter. We got some healing, but that didn't really get a name or anything like that. But the Sokasui Hellfire Crash, I think that is, this establishes for us that there's at least 33 binding spells. And we know Rukia has gone to school and got really high grades in spell casting. So here we get a little bit more of that. And I love also the connection of, like, she fires exactly for the back of the head. She's going for what would be a killing blow. Like, this is all consistent with her training as a Soul Reaper. I love that, like, she flips over his head to get the strike to, like, a vital area. And yeah, this is a great action shot. I especially love, like, Rukia being, like, thrust back by the power of the detonation. But unfortunately, it lacked any true strength as Shrieker turns from the smoke. And yeah, I love that, again, anticipation into this surprising visual, which no background, so that our attention is drawn to the importance of, like, this moment between these two characters. And yeah, goes for the big chomp. We get that a lot, like, a lot of these hollows will try to just take a huge bite out of their opponents, out of their victims. So forward facing, huge bite. She gets a little bit of a scratch there on her shoulder. But I love that he also establishes that he knows that spell, and it's a Soul Reaper spell. So kind of interesting that there's, like, this already, like, hey, that's a Soul Reaper spell, right? That's something that Soul Reapers do, right? That, like, maybe there might be magic outside of Soul Reapers. Maybe that's, like, a little bit of the inclination there, or, like, the implication. But I think the more important takeaway here is just that because she's using magic, and because she's using this specific magic, the keto, right? He's able to identify her as a Soul Reaper, because only Soul Reapers can do that. Yeah, and we get that maybe this hollow is more powerful than the hollows that we've seen so far, because it's already killed 2 Soul Reapers, right? And so we get this connection again, this reminder of the parakeets, and this connection between this hollow and this parakeet. And it's still left a little bit of a mystery. I mean, we can clearly, like, if we're reading this and kind of trying to intuit it, we could make the connection pretty clearly. Like, yeah, people are trying to take the souls of Soul Society. He likes eating powerful souls. He's going to keep this soul around because it's attracting these other souls that he can then devour, right? And then we jump back to the Chad. And I think this is great, is that we get the reminder of, he's like, oh yeah, they try to take that boy. And it's not clear, like, using, like, boy, like, for us, maybe for another audience, the Japanese audience, especially with the verbiage and, all of that, or I guess I say verbiage, the pronouns and things, maybe it's a little bit clearer that, like, there's supposed to be ambiguity there, where Rukia is like, boy, you mean the parakeet? Because maybe there could be the ambiguity of, like, he might be talking about Chad. I mean, obviously he's talking about the parakeet, right? But the fact that Rukia has to ask means that, like, she hasn't 100%, she's trying to clear that, right? But the reminder that there's this parakeet situation here, the reminder that there's a boy and it might have been Chad, I think that's, again, talking about establishing, kind of making, if you want to make a jump from one scene to another, or one character to another, doing that within dialogue, or within this kind of exchange, and then, of course, doing it on a page turn, also effective. So, like, we're already thinking about, okay, well, what's going on with the parakeet? What's going on with Chad? And then we turn the page into that. And he can hear, he's hearing, like, the conflict going on, and they talk a little bit about that. And I love I love that, like, Chad's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go help out. And whenever the parakeet gets worried, Chad puts it like higher up, right? But yeah, I think again we get to see a little bit of a neat parallel between Chad and Ichigo, like this need to protect others. With Ichigo, it tends to be he wants to protect others that he has like this bond with, right? Whereas with Chad, instead, it just seems like whenever he can sense other people in danger, he is very selfless, and he really does feel like he needs to like kind of jump in and join, use essentially his strength to protect, to essentially to like do something because he can, right? Because he's capable of it. So where I think it's close parallel, right? It's very similar to Ichigo, where both of them have this power, and therefore they feel some sense of duty or some sense of needing to use that power to an end. Ichigo's more motivated by those bonds that he has like with other people, those like experience bonds, and not being like that he would feel really scummy if he didn't save people that he even didn't have a bond with if he was there and capable of it, right? But for Chad, it's like it feels like it's coming from less of a place of bond and more of a sense of, this is what his strength exists for. Um, and maybe that's a little bit minor here, but we'll certainly see that going forward in this chapter. Uh, and yeah, I like that again. Shrieker's reminding us that Rukia isn't in a spiritual body; she's in this Gigai, which we get reminded of that a couple times here in this chapter. And I love, yeah, Chad, Chad fighting the Hollow without even being able to see him, and it's cool that we do get like this kind of reminder that it's not something that humans can do at all, right? Um, we don't get the sense that that really hurt Shrieker so much as that maybe it startled him. And I love the comedic moment of like Chad just like punching through the air, doesn't really know what he's doing. But then decks him in the face and hits him with enough strength to like knock him away. So clearly, like Chad's pretty powerful, but also pretty spiritually powerful, even if he isn't spiritually aware, right? That maybe similar to Ichigo, he might have like this kind of strength to him, and even though Ichigo could see ghosts, he hadn't seen a hollow until this point, right? So I think that's kind of similar to maybe what Chad has going on, where Chad had some sort of spiritual sense. I mean, he was able to sense something important about the parakeet, right? Um, but he can't see ghosts. Like he can't perceive this hollow entirely. The fact that he's able to land this hit means that maybe he has a little bit of a sense of where it is, but not exactly, right? That's around, but not perfectly where it's at. And that it is an entity that he can punch in the face. So that's pretty cool. Again, this internalization from Rukia that like normal humans aren't supposed to be able to even touch hollows, right? So the fact that she reflects on that, like clearly Chad's not a normal human, and this idea of him having no fear is fantastic. We get to see Chad kind of, earlier chapters he was drawn a little bit more surly or gangly, but here we get Chad as a bit more like buff and kind of the way that we're used to seeing Chad throughout the series. And I think it's no surprise that's whenever that comes when we have Chad standing tall and fighting against this monster, right? Where I think Kubo maybe got a more of a sense of how he wanted to depict this character as this kind of very, very like strong, capable entity. And maybe, even earlier it could be that Chad was drawn that way so that we wouldn't expect that of him, even though he did block the steel beam. But yeah, kind of interesting stuff. I love, again, jump into this big reveal and even using that white space, while not filling up the entire panel, because we need the context of, hey, he's in the air, right? So we have to get those clouds, we have to get, this perspective shot. But even still, using the white space around the character to draw attention to the action there, to draw our eye towards that, as well as, using a ton of speed lines to literally direct attention. Like all of these are more or less could just be arrows pointing at the character. I mean, that's how you use like the the elements of a scene, right? The different lines. Even Ruki is looking up at him, so we want to follow that perspective if that's what we looked at first. But chances are, whenever you look at this page, the first thing that you see is Shrieker up in the air. Yeah, and I love this exchange of like, well, he's flying, you can't hit him now, right? And Chad's like, well, just tell me where he is. I'll just rip out this this like telephone line, this electrical pole, and I'll bat him out of the air. Uh, Fantastic, right? And I think a really comedic moment of Shrieker freaking out at this character's enormous strength. And yeah, I love this exchange of like, well, what way? And then, you know, bring it down in front of you, and then we get this huge slap into its neck. Really good stuff. And that's of course punctuated with in the collected volume with the power outage bit, because yeah, I guess it's a power line, right? So cute stuff. Wash chamber toilet, I guess. Anyway, water closet. One of those words. Wash chamber. It's water closet, WC. Not really a thing that maybe Westerners are familiar with. At the very least in America, we don't use WC. We just say bathroom. Anyway, that's it for analysis for this. It's a pretty cool chapter. I like that we get a lot of seeing like Chad and like what makes him special and important. Maybe not what makes him special, but we get to see him being powerful and kind of capable and really demonstrating his strength and a bit of his character there too. Otherwise, this huge focus on Rukia, on her thoughts on this Gigai, as well as her using that the new keto spell, and then and I believe in the anime, it's used as Hado. Hado, I think, is the offensive kind of spells, whereas here it's still saying like way of binding. So like there's like it breaks down into different categories too, right? So like there's like healing magic, binding magic, um, what should I call it? Like attack kind of spells. And I believe that they all have distinctions like Hado, Bakudo, so on and so forth. But keto is essentially the catch-all term, or as they've translated it earlier, like the demon's way, which I think that's maybe an over literal translation. I think eventually they decided to just run with the Japanese name and like you will understand. Hey, this is just a bespoke name for this school of magic, right, within the universe. Anyway, let's get into talking about foreshadowing, right? Let's talk about how this connects to Bleach as a whole and some of those larger connections there. So there are a few connections that I want to make. Obviously, there's going to be some spoilers, so if you're not into having things spoiled for you for the manga, you can go ahead and tune out now. Thank you so much for watching this far. But for those of you that are interested on this reread to see how things connect, or if this is your first time through and you're just curious about the larger connections that are happening here, there are quite a few things. So, we get this reminder of Rukia being in the Gigai, and that she is essentially robbed of her powers to a degree. I mean, she could still use keto, but it doesn't really do anything. Um, I like this mention of the research and development freaks, and that they're all about legs and boobs whenever it's muscle they need. And I think especially whenever we consider like Mayuri and Akon and all the people in R&D over in, I think it's 4th division, right? If I'm not correct. I'm like not incorrect, either 4th or 12th. I think 12th might be Kenpachi. It's hard to remember all the squads off the top of my head, I will admit. It's been a while since I've read Bleach, y'all. Anyway, Mayuri, right? That dude's a freak. And whenever we talk about legs and boobs, thinking about Nemu certainly connects. So the idea of like that the people in R&D maybe have a perverse edge to them is already established this early. As we come to know, of course, it's Kisuke that's like basically has this Gigai prepared for Rukia. It's special. He made it, as far as I am aware. So I like that she's blaming R&D freaks. I mean, Kisuke is still an R&D freak to a degree, so I think that's interesting. But then this idea about like legs and boobs whenever it's muscle, um, connecting that to like these design sensibilities. I mean, Rukia is very petite, right? Just like the other artificial entity that Urahara has there, that assumably he's made, Ururu, another very petite, dark-haired girl. So, like clearly I think the idea of creating these kind of these female characters, or they're having this kind of perversion, even especially among research and development, is something that Kubo at least had the idea for this early, right? And would go on to kind of bring into even fuller light later. The idea of not like the mad scientist, but like the unethical scientist. Certainly we get to see a little bit of that with Kisuke, and even more of that to the extreme with both Urahara, not Urahara, what am I saying? That is Kisuke. Both with Mayuri and Aizen, right? That they're both people that kind of through experimentation are doing some pretty messed up things, which Rukia is certainly involved in, even though she doesn't realize it's the case. But again, we get Shrieker. I think it's cool that we'll get all the stuff with Hell in a few chapters. I'll talk about that then. But I like the idea that he's not aware that she's a Shinigami through this Gigai. And assumably, like that's the weird thing, because we don't really get a lot of Gigai stuff in the canon manga. I know that there's a good bit more in some of the filler in the anime, but that's filler in the anime. It's neither here nor there. So I think the idea is that the Gigai should mask that you're a Soul Reaper no matter what. But also, I think that like that bit of him not realizing that she's a Soul Reaper maybe connects a lot to the specificity of that Gigai and how it's it's meant to maybe be that way, right? Anyway, again, reminder of Masaki and how these other characters have kind of inherited the like it's interesting how all of Masaki's children have inherited a different aspect of her to a degree, right? So like we get Ichigo with like this intense like protectiveness, this really like kind of serious nature, uh obviously Quincy powers, big thing. But then I think Yuzu and Karen really embody these other aspects of their mother, like Yuzu being this kind of like maternal sort of figure, even though she's really young, right? She's taking up all these like housekeeping duties. She's really providing a lot for her family. And Karen taking up this kind of this real stoicism, this kind of she clearly very much cares about the spirit, just like Masaki was this very loving and caring person. But this idea of like not crying, right? Of essentially that maybe the trauma might have driven her that way, but that like she's kind of built this sort of stoicism or this strength, this unaffectedness by all this through the loss of her mother. But maybe that also, again, like I said, might be reflective of like an inheritance of sorts. Back to Ruki getting thrown around. So we get that. I said that there was some kind of things that I thought were interesting in this channel, maybe to connect, to the manga at large. So I think I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously, Ruler might be referencing the Soul King, even, um, but the specifically the kind of interesting connection here is that there's the part of the chant of that which names all, which we know that the person that's given everything names and is kind of like a keto master, right? If I'm not incorrect, that is Ichibei over in the Squad Zero, right? That literally his power is that of naming things and giving them strength. And I think the importance of keto, right? The idea of the keto being more powerful whenever you do the chant, because you're getting in its full name or like descriptor, right? That you're fully invoking the thing and therefore making it manifest. So I think this is really cool that like, and again, I don't know that whenever Kubo wrote this, he had the idea of, hey, there is a magical man that his name is Ichibei, and he's invented all these things, and he's literally the entity that names everything. I think instead, Kubo had the idea of, hey, what if I had these cool magical chants, and these chants kind of were able to make that magic real, and the idea of, okay, well, if I'm using language, if I'm using calling out a thing to invoke its power, then the idea of names and of chants and of calling out to something being significant is already there, and then Ichigo's character maybe grew from that. But I love that here, the idea of, again, that which names all is already mentioned, right? Kind of interesting stuff. I don't know if I could make other connections as far as, all things of the universe fly, Mask of Blood and Flesh, Truth and Temperance, or Slight Claw, the Dream Wall, which brooks no sin. Uh, all of that I'm not so sure about. I mean, the Slight Claw might be the idea of like, I'm trying to conjure this destructive magic that scrapes literally at maybe this reality that is imagined, but because I'm literally manipulating reality by doing magic, maybe that would be a problem. But it's okay. This doesn't brook any sin. This isn't an issue. I don't know. Um, I'm curious. If you have any other connections that you can think with, like this chant especially, feel free to let me know in the comments. Of course, make sure to tag that for spoilers so that those who aren't aware, you know, don't get caught up in reading that whenever they're just scrolling through. But yeah, we get this first combative spell from Rukia, which is pretty cool. I like the Sokasui. Lots of just like, I'm gonna explode you magic and keto, but hey, they can't all be black coffins. Anyway, I love that, like, yeah, I got my powers back. It's like, no, you just did the chant, which is maybe like having that spiritual inclination, doing the chant is all that you need to manifest the spell. But I love here that we're getting this very clear indicator of like, okay, well, your Riatsu, your spiritual power, is significant towards, like, sure, you could do the spell, but people will be able to do the same spell but stronger, where they have more spiritual power. So that's kind of neat stuff. Um, Again, I mentioned this in the analysis, but the idea of it being a Soul Reaper spell already establishes that, like, okay, well, there's maybe other magic in this universe, at the very least, that, like, him recognizing that spell, instead of him being like, you could do magic, you must be a Soul Reaper, the fact that he's like, that's a Soul Reaper spell, signifies that Shrieker, at the very least, understands that because she's doing keto, she's a Soul Reaper. Um, but if he were to attack her with those like some other sort of ability, she might be, Quincy or Fullbringer, or even have some sort of other powers. So I like that, like, there's this slight nod maybe to other entities that could perform these sorts of feats, which we see that certainly in Chad to a degree as we go on. Yeah. Uh, Other big thing, I mean, just Chad in general, Chad being Chad, all that good stuff. Uh, the idea of him being able to fight this hollow, I talked about that largely in the analysis and how that kind of connected. But I think, connecting maybe even bigger to the manga, the idea of Chad, like, even if he's not aware, so we talked a lot about like the unseen and the danger of like death that you cannot perceive. The fact that Chad doesn't have fear gets brought up, right? Because he doesn't even fear this unseen thing. But in a lot of ways, that embodies Chad going forward. Like, he doesn't understand, like, he doesn't know how powerful, everyone in this whole society is, but because Ruki has been captured, because he has this connection to Ichigo, like, of course he's going to have Ichigo's back. Of course he's going to jump right into the lion's den. And even whenever we get back into Soul Society, whenever they get thrust, whenever they shoot out the cannon, I think it's Chad is the one that specifically makes sure that the group stays as grouped up as possible, even at the cost of himself being flung into danger alone. So I think Chad is like this kind of character who is willing to step into danger, and even if he's completely outmatched, still kind of rely on like his strength and try to be this character with this intense strength that can actually persevere, and to stand in for those that are less. I think that's something that like we see a lot in the manga earlier on. And then later, as we go on, Chad ends up getting more and more neglected, kind of as a character in a lot of ways. I'm glad that he still sticks around. I'm glad that he's still there in the final arc, even if he doesn't do much. But I'm glad that he continues to that he has this arc of rationalizing, like, okay, well, he's not always going to be the most powerful entity, and we can talk about Chad's arcs later, whenever those are more pertinent here. But I love that this is already that seed of exactly who Chad is, and that would carry for quite a while in the manga. And yeah, no surprise, of course, striking with his left fist there. And then, we quickly get a right that misses. So maybe that's indicator a little bit more of what's going on in his power, but this is a right hook too. So I don't think the left right is maybe thought of as much here. Just the fact that Chad is able to maybe fight with both hands is perhaps important, but I think here it's maybe more just a stylistic decision for angling the characters in a way that makes the art cool. That's all. Because that way we can get left to right or right to left action, and characters facing us. That's it. But yeah, I think the idea that Chad still has this body that's capable of interacting with souls, right? That like he's normal humans, right? He's got a full brain, and I think that's cool, certainly. Yeah. Otherwise, him ripping up the power line to smack Shrieker out of the air is great stuff, and I will always love. I don't know that necessarily that resourcefulness shows up as much later, but it's good here, and I love it here. And I wish we got more fantastic moments like that from Chad throughout the entirety of the manga. But I'm glad that we got what we got. I think Chad's a really, really cool character and a really interesting kind of, like, in a lot of ways parallel to Ichigo, but there's some significant differences. I think he just is like a cool core member of the cast without just being, Ichigo but weaker. So yeah. That's it. That's basically it. That's it for Chapter 9. I don't have a lot of other connections to make here. Plus, this is running on close to an hour, so that's pretty much all I had to say. If you have any sort of ideas or connections or just commentary, or if you want to engage with anything that I've said, feel free to do so in the comments. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. You can support me on Patreon. All of that's in the video description. But I'm glad that you watched through this entire video. I'm glad that you're interested in Bleach, and I 100% support that. That's the point of this channel, is to get people excited about Bleach, to kind of revisit Bleach with a new eye and a new lens, and to engage with other fans of it. So, Once again, thank you. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. But that's out for episode 9 of Bleach Revisited. This has been Karkar Gold. As always, never forget, spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.